Welcome back to the Voices of Women Summit, where in honor of International Women's Day 2022, we are raising the voices of hundreds of women so their messages can be heard. Your host for this session is Kimberly Crow. Kimberly Crow is the founder of Entrepreneurs Rocket Fuel and the creator of the Voices of Women Summit. She's got another amazing guest coming right up. Take it away, Kimberly.
Well, hello, folks. You are going to love our next speaker. She is going to blow you away and change your mind on all kinds of pieces of energy. It is Renee Remy. Renee, welcome to the summit.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. It has been a wonderful day of speakers. I really loved it. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you being able to contribute, but also to be able to follow some of the other speakers as well. Thank you so much for carving time out of your day to share. We're going to talk about this really passionate topic, which is stop being an excuse queen and begin living your dreams. Like, just stop with the excuses and start with the possibilities. I freaking love this so much. So before we get into this, I need to know your story. Tell me how you became so passionate about this particular subject.
Well, I'd be happy to tell you about how I became so passionate about this subject. And as I think with all the speakers, it begins with our history, our story, what has happened. And for me, growing up, I was told over and over again that I wasn't good enough, I wasn't pretty enough, I wasn't worthwhile. And I had all these messages embedded into me. And it's not just the big messages, it's also the little messages. When I was 12 years old, I had this friend that I thought was so brilliant and so smart, and I wanted to be as good as her, and we would always be competing. And so we were competing in math class, and there was this test, and it was super, super hard. And I got the test back, and I saw I got 97%, and I was like, okay, that's not bad. And so I checked with my friend, and my friend didn't do as well as me. And I'm like, I've got the highest test score in the class. I was so excited because this was such a hard test. So I brought it home all excited. I was ready to show my mother, and I brought her test. And I said, look at what I did. And she looked at it and she said to me, you just can't do anything perfect, can you?
Oh, ouch. Wow, Renee.
This didn't just stop there. Then I moved to the United States and I went to an all-white school. And in this all-white school, even though I had come from honors classes, they told me that the best I could do was go into remedial classes. And I said, but, and they're like, nope, we have no proof that you're intelligent enough to actually go into anything other than remedial classes. They had, yes, my test scores from my other school. And so they insisted. And then when it came time to apply to colleges and universities, I asked them for the materials so that I could apply. And what they said to me is they said, well, you can't get into college or university because no college or university will accept you. And I looked at it and I'm like, well, I could go to community college, can't I? And they're like, no, community college won't accept you either. So fast forward, I was visiting my cousin in a hospital, and he said, did you apply to the school? And I'm like, no, I didn't apply to that school. Why would I apply to the school? Everyone has told me I can't go to college. But it had been my dream since I was a little girl to go to college. This had been my lifelong dream. And so my mother said, I have an application in my purse right here. So I filled out the application there on the hospital floor. And then it's a funny longer story, but basically my sister ended up turning in the application and I ended up going to that school. Wow. Well, when I got to Stanford University, I thought, everyone is so much smarter than me. Everyone is meant to be. I'm the only person that's not supposed to be here.
Oh my gosh, this is an incredible story. Wait, I've got to savor some of these pieces. This is so genius. Like, you were told not even community college. You accidentally applied to Stanford. You got into one of the most prestigious universities in the nation of the US. Totally powerful story. And when you got there, you felt a little out of place.
Totally out of place. Can you say imposter syndrome to the nth degree?
Yeah.
But also because of those messages that have been drummed into me all these years, I figured I had done everything I could possibly do in my life. I had lived my dream. So I decided to commit suicide.
Oh,
Now, clearly it didn't work. But what I found out in the process is I found out that there were people who thought differently about me than I thought about myself. And that what was holding me back was not what was the evidence out in the world or the evidence that was true about me or how other people felt about me. It was what I was thinking and how I felt about myself.
mhm. Yeah.
And I'm not the only person that has used those old voices as excuses for playing small, for not taking chances, for not going out and being the full person that they could be. And so as a result, yes, I spent my life figuring out how do we manage those voices? How do we overcome them? How do we go out and live our lives and live our dreams instead of living in our excuses that stop us?
Wow, this is so compelling. This is so delicious and juicy as a story. This is a screenplay, ladies and gentlemen. This needs to be in Hollywood. This is incredible. All right, let's keep going. What did you do next?
Well, I'll talk to Tammy later, but yeah, so I just spent my life looking at techniques. I've studied so many different techniques and I've studied them from different people who were experts and people who were just teaching pieces of it. So for example, one year I went to a Tony Robbins event, learned a little bit about neurolinguistic programming, came back to a job that I was absolutely miserable in, implemented just a few things and turned that around to the best job that I ever had.
Oh my gosh.
I kept learning different techniques and whether it was emotional intelligence or positive psychology or neuroscience, because I am trained as a neuroscience coach as well, all of these things went into me going, okay, I need to teach this to other people because so many other people were feeling stuck. They were using their excuses to not go forward. And so I started embedding this in everything that I did in a way in which I could teach others. And so I just love to watch people do things and inspire people to go do things that they never thought they would do.
This is an incredible story. It's an incredible story. I absolutely love this, the way that this is unfolding. So powerful. And now you're teaching other people to be able to walk away from those excuses and start actually living a life you love. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, the very first thing we have to do is admit that we're living our excuses, right? As opposed to living our dreams.
Because if we tell ourselves this is the excuse and this is the why, if we tell ourselves we can't, our brains are like problem solving machines and they will find evidence to prove that we can't because we've just told it that. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when we keep telling ourselves that we can't and we keep doing that, what we do is we embed that as a habit. And every time we live in our excuses, we embed that habit deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And then as we try to come out, right, there are these sneaky little ways that spiral up where it comes back.
Yep. Yeah.
So yeah.
And to reprove that it's true. That is so true. So we can actually do that with the reverse though, as well. If we believe our excuses, we can continue to believe our excuses, but a belief is just a thought we keep thinking. A belief is just a thought we keep thinking. A belief is just a thought we keep thinking. A belief is just a thought I keep thinking. All right. So if I'm just going to keep thinking a thought, why don't I think a thought that is in my best interest instead of a thought that is in my worst interest?
Yeah. And you know what? It is so easy to say. And the challenge is it's not necessarily that easy to do. And so we have to work through a process where we keep working at shifting from that negative thought to that positive thought and taking action in it along the way.
Definitely.
And so that shift is where people have most of the problem because they don't know how to get out of that negative thought. Excuse me.
Thank you.
So I don't know if there's people out there that have these negative thoughts that they're spiraling along in,
Oh,
let me
anybody,
know.
if you are a person out there that might have a few negative thoughts that are spiraling around, go ahead and put a 1 in the chat for us. Go ahead and put a 1 in the chat if you've ever had negative thoughts that sort of spiral around you and, like clutter up your thinking. Yeah, we got a couple of 1s in the chat. We got a couple of like multiple 1s in the chat right now. Patricia says, I used to. That's interesting that we have made those shifts and made those changes. All right, so what do we do with that? What do we do if we're stuck in that?
Well, the first thing is you need to become aware of what those voices sound like. So it's really important that you capture that. Now, people do journaling for all sorts of different reasons. I think it's important to actually journal what those negative voices are saying, because as we put awareness on it, we start to weaken it. Now, you can go ahead and then take that journal and never read it, burn it up. That's all okay, right? Because what we're not looking to do is we're not looking to put them back into our system. But in order to counter them, we actually have to know what they are, and we actually have to hear them. Because what happens is we usually just work in automatic mode, right? Like the negative voice says, no, don't do that. You're not good enough. And you go, okay, and you go on with life, right? It's like when you ask yourself, when you got in the car, how the heck did I get home?
Autopilot, yeah.
Right? And so this is what we're trying to shift. And so to shift out of that, first you have to be aware and you have to be able to stop. And so Shirzad Chamine wrote a book called Positive Intelligence, and he talks about how we can stop by using something called the self-command muscle, right? And this is where we stop, get centered and grounded in our body, and then we have the ability to shift again. But the problem is people actually sometimes don't notice what their saboteur is. So they actually need to spend some time like looking at it. I think some people might be familiar with like, it's not just right yet. I need to do this again, maybe a little bit longer. Oh, as soon as I have my website perfect, then I can go out and tell people what it is I'm doing.
Don't even start with me on this one, Rita. You're pushing all my buttons. I totally get that. I hear it all the time.
Right? I'm going to start exercising next week after I've bought a new pair of leggings or running shoes or something like that, right? Oh, I can't exercise in my house. It's too small. I will search for a good gym to go exercise in, and then I'll start doing something. What are your reasons for holding you back, right? We can live in our excuses.
I think you're pulling things directly from my brain and saying them out of your mouth now. That's not fair. I think I've actually said those things about the gym recently. I travel full time, and then I can be in hotels that have gyms, and I'm like, I don't know, COVID, but I travel full time. So COVID is not a fear for me. Like, I don't have that fear, but somehow when it comes to the gym, I'm like, I don't know. What is that about? You're totally right. I'm living my excuses and not my dreams. You're totally right.
Right. And the other way we live our excuses is when we start judging things, right? And we go, oh, well, that person, blah, 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 blah. Every time you are judging something else, a circumstance, a person, something that happened, what you're really doing is you're judging yourself.
Really?
There is something about you that you are not happy with. So you instead put down someone else, something else, right?
Sort of the sour grapes attitude, like, oh, she's got a really nice purse, but that's just a waste of money. Or, yeah, okay, all right, I'm with you. I've heard this one before.
Exactly. I love the example that you gave. So that's just a waste of money. So what's really going on there is you have a limiting belief there about money and how it should be spent.
You're so right.
Right? So you think, oh, I'm judging her because she wasted money on a purse, but you're actually judging yourself about what your true belief is about money. And now every time you go to do something, which is, for example, like invest in yourself, you don't do it. You have an excuse to stop. But those sneaky little sabotaging voices show up in ways that if you're not capturing this, you don't realize that that's where that voice is coming from.
So a lot of us do positive affirmations. A lot of our tribe is like, okay, well, I do affirmations. And that affirmation is I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me, whatever it is, right? And that was from a Saturday Night Live episode. If you guys got that reference, put a 2 in the chat. But that was awesome. But if you're doing the positive affirmations, you're actually ignoring those inner saboteurs and you're not acknowledging them. And your recommendation is actually to acknowledge them. Is that right?
Yes, because then you can start to shift those specific thoughts, those specific voices, right? Because the next part of the process, right, is to get grounded, right? It is to take the time to stop and get centered using, now the easiest way to do it is to use a really quick mindfulness exercise that takes about 10 seconds. And it grounds you into your body again. And when you ground back into your body, it stops those voices and those thoughts. So you were saying you would like an example?
I would love an example. How many of you actually, we're going to need to get engagement from the audience right now. Put a 3 in the chat box if you want Renee to share with us what the 10 seconds is that we can do in order to stop those spinning ugly thoughts. So we want to hear it. We want to know that you're in it with us. Okay, tons of 3s in the chat. All right, share with us. What is it that we can do? 10 seconds.
Okay. So you can make up your own one, and I'm going to tell you, it is about paying exquisite attention to a particular sense. So this is one of my favorite ones. I can do it right now while I'm talking to you. You can see that it changes in a minute. You can even try it with me if you have one. But I take a pen and I just roll that pen around between my fingers, and I feel the firmness. I feel the hardness. I feel the shape. I feel the smooth edges. I feel the sharp edges. I feel all the different parts of the pen. How are you feeling right now?
Very focused, very grounded.
Yes. And when you get there, now you can make a decision as how you want to respond, instead of automatically responding the way you have been.
I like it. That was good. That was very effective. I don't know if you guys did that, but put effective in the chat box if that worked for you. By the way, we got a lot of 3s in the chat, and then Patricia Beeler put in a 9 because it was 3 times 3. Like it was that important. So totally off. Effective. Everybody says yes, effective, effective. Okay, fantastic. I'm glad that you guys got value out of that, because that was really, really a centering, grounding exercise for me.
Yeah, a lot of people think mindfulness takes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes. I'm not saying that you can't spend a half an hour meditating or 15 minutes meditating, but if you're in the middle of a situation where you need to change your reaction right away, there are ways to do it. And that's just one example. If you're in the middle of a meeting, you're having a conversation, and let's say you get all nervous. Oh my goodness, I was like, oh, okay, they're going to call me next.
Focus on the pen.
And then you're ready. And then the truth of who you are can come out, instead of the excuses and the beliefs that were bedded into you all previously through your life. Because one of the things that happens with excuses that make them so deeply embedded is that when we do them with emotion, they're really strengthened, right? So we need to relieve that emotion in order to shift to a process that allows us to choose something different.
Fair enough. I love it.
And so I know we're running out of time, so let me just tell you about the third part of this. The third part of this is actually to realize that the situation that you are in, the situation that you are experiencing, the thing that heightened your emotion, right, is something that has a gift in it. And figuring out what that gift is something you can spend a lot of time doing, or you can just decide. Right? Because when we just go, okay, so what's the gift in this situation? The gift is I have this opportunity. The gift is I now have this knowledge. The gift is I now have this experience. The gift is I now know something about this person that I didn't know before. and then you could decide how to respond. Whether you are responding through empathy, whether you're responding through curiosity. Mine, I love is curiosity, right? It's like wondering, so why did that person say that? Why did that person why did this situation? I love curiosity. I love getting curious, right? But sometimes you just have to have compassion, especially when someone is bent on hurting you, which is where a lot of our excuses come from. I don't want to get hurt.
Oh, yes.
And so if you're in a situation where someone is thinking, I need to hurt you, just think about the saboteurs, the negative voices that must be in their head that makes them think that's okay. It's not about you.
Yeah. And I actually have the phrase that I heard is hurt people, right? So if what's going on in them is that they're here to deliberately hurt you, then the reason that happens could be because they are hurt themselves, but that's really not about you either. That's really about what's going on in them. Super powerful stuff. All right. So you do have a gift for our folks, which is Build Mental Fitness with the Self-Command Muscle. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, so lasting behavioral change and emotional change, right, requires 20% insight and 80% mental muscle. So that 20% insight, that's about understanding those saboteurs, and it's about figuring out ways to actually respond in a different way. But that 80% is the self-command muscle. It's learning how to do that shift. And so this guide here helps you learn how to do that shift, gives you examples that are as great as the pin and more, right, to do that shift.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah. And what you will do is you will discover that since you found a little bit of it working, your negative voices are going to say, oh, hold on, maybe I don't want that, maybe I don't want to do that, maybe I don't want to go there, maybe I can do it later, right? If you're hearing any of that, you need to download this and start working tonight, right? Because we know that every time you say yes to that negative voice, you embed that negative thought deeper. And so in order for you to get rid of your excuses, you need to start tonight. You need to start tonight doing things that are different from the way in which you've been doing it before. Doing things differently creates change.
Doing things differently creates change. I love it. Super powerful stuff. All right. For our VIP gift, we actually have a saboteur assessment. Tell us about that. And if you want to upgrade to VIP, you can do that. We will put the link in the chat. What's the saboteur assessment?
Okay, so the saboteur assessment is giving you an opportunity to actually take a quick assessment on what your saboteurs are, find out which ones are actually impacting you the most, and then to be able to go through an opportunity to discuss them and figure out what do you do about those specific saboteurs that are impacting you.
Perfect. All right, great. So if you haven't already upgraded to VIP, I recommend you do that right now. Lots of great gifts from a lot of amazing speakers. Plus, you're going to get the recordings of all of the different speakers. This has been absolutely phenomenal, Renee. We have really, really enjoyed you. Your story is incredible. I'm not kidding. It deserves to be in Hollywood. I love it. I love the ups and downs. I love all of it. I love the credible story behind that. Super powerful. And I love the 97%. Oh, not good enough story. Really, really powerful stuff. So super excited to have you. Up next, I'm actually going to be talking about how we can raise our voice, and raising your voice is super, super powerful. So come join me at the bottom of the hour. And then we have our wrap-up call where you all get to join in the fun. So I hope, Renee, you'll be back for that and we can play together there. But before we let you go, any final words from our crew?
Yes. If you are an excuse queen, now is the time to choose. You can choose to continue to be an excuse queen, or you can choose to follow your dreams.
The choice is yours. All right, ladies and gentlemen, words to live by. We will see you back at the bottom of the hour. I'm Kimberly Crow. Cheers.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing session of the Voices of Women Summit, where our mission is to raise the voices of hundreds of women so their messages can be heard. For recordings of all sessions, plus an amazing VIP gift bundle, upgrade to VIP now. If you have any questions or problems during the summit, email our support team at support@voicesofwomensummit.com. Stay tuned. We have another fantastic speaker coming right up.